What if I told you that everything you believe about death might be wrong? That the end you're so afraid of might not be an end at all? You're watching Nature and Soul, and today we're diving into the most profound question a human being can ask. Is death really the end? We live in a culture obsessed with youth, terrified of aging, and paralyzed by the thought of our own mortality. We build legacies, accumulate wealth, and chase success, all in a desperate attempt to outrun the one thing we can't escape. But what if the ancient sages of India had it right all along? What if modern science is now catching up to what the Vedas and Upanishads declared thousands of years ago? Here's what we're going to uncover today. Neuroscience is hitting a wall trying to explain consciousness through brain activity alone. And the ancient philosophy of Vedanta offers a radical explanation that just might resolve the mystery. If you're ready to explore the unknown, to question everything you thought you knew about life and death, hit that subscribe button. This is where science meets spirit. Let's start with a simple observation. You are conscious. You're experiencing this video right now. You have thoughts, feelings, sensations. You have an inner world, what philosophers call first-person experience, or qualia. That's the most obvious, undeniable fact of your existence. You know you exist because you are aware, but here's the problem. Modern science has absolutely no explanation for how this happens. We can map the brain's 100 billion neurons with incredible detail. We can watch them fire using fMRI and PET scans. We can even stimulate specific regions and alter your personality, your memory, your perception. But not a single scientist has ever shown how physical matter, the gray tissue in your skull, creates subjective experience. David Chalmers, the Australian philosopher and cognitive scientist, calls this the hard problem of consciousness. And it's the elephant in the room that neuroscience keeps bumping into. Chalmers says there's a fatal mistake in the materialist view. You can't make the leap from brain activity to conscious experience. They're fundamentally different categories. You can't squeeze consciousness out of the brain like juice from an orange. The philosophical problem is this. If consciousness is just brain activity, the materialist view, then when the brain dies you cease to exist. Period. Game over. That's what modern science tells us. But what if the materialists have it backwards? What if consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but merely filtered or transmitted through it? That's exactly what the ancient wisdom of Vedanta has been saying for millennia. And here's the mind-bending part. Some of the greatest minds in American intellectual history, from Emerson to Oppenheimer, were captivated by these very ideas. Now let's dive into the ancient wisdom. Vedanta is a school of Indian philosophy based on the Upanishads, the concluding portions of the Vedas, which are among the oldest sacred texts in the world. The central teaching of Advaita, non-dual Vedanta, is summarized in 4 simple words. Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. You are not separate from the ultimate reality. Vedanta makes a radical claim about who you really are. According to Vedanta, you are not your body. You are not even your mind. You are Atma, the eternal, unchanging consciousness that illuminates all your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. The Sanskrit word Atma simply means the true self, the observer behind all observation. Think about it this way. When you watch a movie, you see the images on the screen, you hear the sound, but you don't confuse yourself with the images, right? You're the witness of the movie, separate from it. Vedanta says the same is true for your life. Your thoughts, your emotions, your body, these are like the movie playing on the screen of consciousness. But you are the awareness in which they appear. The Upanishads describe this ultimate reality as Brahman, infinite, unchanging existence, consciousness, bliss. This is where it gets really interesting for our question about death. If you are that eternal consciousness, what dies when the body dies? The answer, and I invite you to really sit with this, is that only the instrument dies. The consciousness that used that instrument continues. Swami Vivekananda, the Indian monk who brought Vedanta to America in 1894, put it beautifully. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within. And here's a staggering Vedantic claim. There is only one reality, one non-dual consciousness, that appears as both the observer and the observed. Just like in a dream, your mind alone appears as both the dreamer and the dream world. The soul Atma is described as indestructible, eternal, and the cause of which the body is merely an effect. destroy the effect, the body, and the cause remains completely unaffected. This is a precise metaphysical claim that has profound logical consistency. Now for the mind-blowing part. Modern science is actually starting to point in this direction. Neuroscience has studied consciousness from every angle. Global workspace theory, integrated information theory, the attention schema theory, you name it. The late Francis Crick, yes, the same Nobel laureate who co-discovered the structure of DNA, spent his final years studying consciousness and believed it might arise from synchronized activity in a brain region called the claustrum. Physicist Roger Penrose, also a Nobel laureate, proposes that consciousness emerges from quantum effects inside microtubules, tiny structures inside your brain cells, and cannot be explained by ordinary physical laws. But here's the thing. All these theories are correlations. They can show what happens in the brain when consciousness is present. But none of them actually explain how matter produces subjective experience. The hard problem remains unsolved, and some of the most honest scientists admit this. As one Vedanta scholar put it, the neuroscientist is seized on the binding problem that connects different elements of the brain into one functional unit. Vedanta makes it simple. Just as one ocean is responsible for all waves, the self connects everything together. Here's a critical insight. A robot can analyze the chemical composition of a mango. It can tell you the sugar content, the texture, the temperature, but it can never taste the sweetness. It has no subjective experience. That's the difference between data processing and consciousness. Consciousness is what philosophers call phenomenal experience. The raw, what it's like to be something. And no machine, no matter how complex, has ever demonstrated this. The Vedantic perspective aligns with a growing position in philosophy called panpsychism. The idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, like space and time. It's not something that emerges from matter. It's something that interacts with matter through the brain and nervous system. Even Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, and Joseph Campbell, the American mythologist, saw deep connections between Eastern philosophy and the structure of consciousness. A recent scientific paper, published in the journal Yoga Mimamsa, explicitly argues that consciousness is a fundamental reality of the universe, as fundamental as matter, time, space, and energy. Let me be clear. I'm not saying science has proven the existence of the soul. That's not true. But I am saying that the materialist dogma that consciousness is nothing but brain chemistry is now being questioned at the highest levels of science. And as philosopher David Chalmers says, we should never make the mistake of jumping from brain activity correlates with consciousness to brain activity is consciousness. That's a leap of faith, not a scientific conclusion. Alright, you might be thinking, this is fascinating, but how does it help me? I've got bills to pay, stress to manage, and a life to live. Here's where it gets practical. If consciousness is primary, if you are not just a biological machine waiting to rust, then everything changes. First, the fear of death begins to dissolve, not because you've proven life after death, but because you realize that your essential nature, awareness, has never been the body. When you identify with that awareness, the fear of losing the body loses its power. Second, your stress and anxiety come into perspective. Most of our anxiety is about the ego, the I we've constructed from our job, our relationships, our status. Vedanta calls this Maya, the illusion of identifying with the temporary. Third, you discover a new foundation for peace. The Upanishads say the self is Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. These aren't three separate things. They're three descriptions of the same underlying reality. Here's a simple practice you can do. It takes just 5 minutes. Pause and take 3 deep breaths. Close your eyes. Observe your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations. Notice that you are the one observing them. Ask yourself, who am I when I'm not thinking? What's left when the thoughts stop? Rest in that awareness, just for a few moments. Don't try to grasp it, just be it. This isn't about escaping the world. It's about finding the quiet center from which you can engage the world more effectively. As one Vedantic teacher wrote, denial of limitation is the acceptance of infinity. So where does this leave us? We started with a terrifying question. Is death really the end? And what we've discovered is that this question only exists if you believe you are the body and mind. If you are just that, then yes, when the body dies, you die. But if the ancient sages were right, if you are the eternal consciousness that illuminates every thought, sensation, and experience of this life, then death is no more than shedding a worn-out garment. The neuroscientist searches for consciousness in the brain and can't find it. The Vedantic sage looks within and discovers it's the very light by which all searching is possible. There's a profound irony here. Science can observe the brain, it can map the neurons, it can stimulate the claustrum and watch consciousness flicker, but it can never observe the observer. It can never know the knower, because the observer is what makes all observation possible. So here's my question for you. Do you believe you are the electrical signals in your brain, or is there a deeper you that watches even those signals? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Is consciousness just brain activity, or is it something more? Have you had an experience that made you question the nature of your own awareness? If this video sparked something in you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you for watching Nature and Soul. Remember to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We release new explorations of science and spirituality every week. In our next video, we're going to dive deeper into the quantum mechanics of consciousness. What does entanglement tell us about the nature of reality? What does quantum physics say about the interconnectedness of all things? You won't want to miss it. Until then, question everything, especially what you think you know about yourself. I'll see you in the next one.